and that is Jonnu Smith out of Miami. The Dolphins tight end has some familiarity with Arthur Smith, plenty of it. To be honest, they played together in Tennessee. They played together in Atlanta, or I guess they worked together in Tennessee and they worked together in Atlanta when Arthur Smith, now the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. And then before that, the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. Smith became a stud in Tennessee. He emerged as the guy that replaced Delanie Walker, then went on to do big and great things throughout his NFL career. He's 29 years old. He'll become 30 before the season. He is certainly a name that amongst those receiving options that may be available stands out. Jonnu Smith is a guy that is as reliable as they come at the tight end position, is a name that certainly helps in the receiving game, no matter who your quarterback is. And you know what they say, a quarterback's best friend is always a good tight end. And if the Steelers are thinking tight end heavy offense, and that's how they're going to win the receiving game, well, there's pros and there are cons to that situation. But the Pittsburgh Steelers were reportedly in on Jonnu Smith. Then, friend of the show, Mark Caboli, went on 93.7 The Fan and said that the Pittsburgh Steelers were not in on Jonnu Smith and that they don't have interest in Jonnu Smith, probably because he comes with too much money. He is seeking a larger contract than the one he currently has, and he wants to stay in Miami, which to the Steelers just means another hostage and not a volunteer. I've made some phone calls. I've spoke to some people. Jonnu Smith's name has come up. Obviously, he is the name that has sparked all of many reports, and we'll dive into more of them, obviously, but it starts very simply with Caboli isn't far off. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't have much interest in Jonnu Smith. They are seeking a receiving option. They want another receiver on their roster. They want someone to come in here and replace George Pickens and be that guy next to DK Metcalf. And they're hoping to find that guy relatively soon. And I thought that they would slow it down and go into the summer and then make that decision after seeing Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. But apparently they've seen all that they need to see and that the Steelers are ready to make a move. What that move is going to be, we'll dive into some options here in a minute, but nothing is truly set in stone as to if they're going splashy or if they're going small. The Pittsburgh Steelers are somewhat open to everything. At least that's what I've been told, but they are open to adding and wanting to add a receiving option. Throughout the Jonnu Smith situation, many things have come out. Darnell Washington's name was the biggest one that was out there, saying he may be part of the trade for a Jonnu Smith with the Miami Dolphins. Maybe, maybe not. The Pittsburgh Steelers are high on Darnell Washington. I don't think that they see him as the elite pass catching option that some of the fan base hopes he turns into. I don't think they ever see him as a 1,000-yard receiver, maybe even a 500-yard receiver in the NFL. They view him as a strong blocking option, a guy who's going to come in here and be a part of the run game and be able to contribute in the passing game heading into year 3 of his NFL career. They may have seen a lot of what they're going to get in the receiving game from Darnell Washington. They obviously like Darnell Washington. He remains their tight end too, but the Steelers, I don't think, would have looked at Darnell and said, he's the reason that we're not going to trade for Jonnu Smith. He's the reason that we're going to hold back on another receiving tight end because we have Darnell Washington. They view him more as a blocker, which, you know, makes a ton of sense. He's a massive human being. This is what he excels in. But I still think that he has value in the receiving game, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to draw at least some of that. They are not ruling out a tight end addition, obviously. You know, names like Kyle Pitts have been floated around, and I'm not saying the Steelers are high on Kyle Pitts or going to get Kyle Pitts. What I'm saying is that I wouldn't rule out. First, we got a quick word from our boys over at Factor. Summer is here. More sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer, spending hours cooking inside. That's where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. The 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. Choose from options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor powers your day sun up to sundown with nutritious breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor has your whole day covered. Enjoy more this summer. Get Factor if you want all the flavor and none of the fuss. I love Factor. I've been doing Factor for a while now. It saves me all the time. And now I just got hooked up with their juices, and I slammed 2 or 3 of those things on the 4-hour drive to the bachelor party and then the 4-hour drive back. So shout out to Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off and use code allsteelerstalk50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code allsteelerstalk50 off at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off. Shout out to our boys over at Factor. A Kyle Pitts rumor floating around there in the next couple of days that the Steelers are looking at Atlanta and saying maybe we add another familiar face for Arthur Smith. Kyle Pitts is probably cheap. He's a name that, broke Atlanta's rookie receiving record in a Falcons uniform with Arthur Smith calling the plays. Has obviously gone downhill since. He's real hit or miss, I believe, as a player that you're going to trade for, but just tossing it out there right now that I would not rule out those rumors starting to emerge over the next couple of days. That's all I'd say on that. I wouldn't say that it's likely. I wouldn't say he's my favorite for the Steelers to go get. I'm just saying more of a heads up. Expect it to happen. Expect those rumors to emerge. But Jonnu Smith, not a name that, in my eyes, at least from what I've been told, is a name that the Pittsburgh Steelers have much interest in. Have they called about players? Yes, they've called several teams about several players looking to add some sort of weapon to their offense in the coming days or weeks. Maybe the Miami Dolphins were one of those teams that they called. I would imagine that they called most teams looking to make a move, but I wouldn't say he's high on their list. There's another name that's been floated out there, and that's Trey Palmer of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the speedy receiver who 2 years ago went on a rampage in the preseason against the Pittsburgh Steelers, made them look like fools, and opened up a lot of questions about how bad their cornerback room really was. Since then, they've obviously added plenty to their corner room, and they've done a lot to their secondary, but they liked Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer's a speedy guy out of Tampa Bay. He's obviously pretty far down the depth chart with the Buccaneers where we currently stand because you have guys like Chris Godwin returning, Mike Evans still being there. They added Emeka Egbuka. They have McMillan, who is an emerging wide receiver. Trey Palmer seems to be a little bit deeper on their list. I don't mind Trey Palmer. And Nick Fairbaugh was the one that reported that one, or Zachary Smith, out of Around the 412, reported that one. I did get it confirmed that they've called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looking to ask about trades. And then I just assumed Trey Palmer was the name there. I didn't get details on who they specifically asked for, but we will believe Zach. I believe most of what Zach says. And well, Trey Palmer seems to be the name. Speedy guy. And it kind of gives you an idea of where they stand and how wide the spectrum is for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And that is that Chris Olave was the name that they called earlier in the offseason. They said, hey, New Orleans, you got a lot going on right now. If you are willing to give up a Chris Olave superstar, we'll make a move for him. We'll make that trade. We're going to get rid of George Pickens. We would like to have another superstar wide receiver under our belt so that as we move forward, DK Metcalf and whoever, hopefully Chris Olave, are the names to watch leading our receiving core. But it goes all the way down to a Trey Palmer who comes in here and isn't a wide receiver 2, but really another wide receiver 3 that fits the bill that the Pittsburgh Steelers are saying boosts their room. I think last year the problem was they had a bunch of wide receiver 4s. They didn't need a bunch of wide receiver 4s. They needed a wide receiver 2. This year, they're hoping Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin are wide receiver 2. Robert Woods is wide receiver 3. And then you could have a Trey Palmer who's also a wide receiver 3, or a Trey Palmer-esque player, somebody in that same ballpark as Trey Palmer. Do I think it fixes anything? To be honest with you, a little bit, but not enough. Trey Palmer obviously adds more talent to the Steelers wide receiver room. He adds another guy who probably has untapped potential when a lot of these guys have, reached their ceiling. You're not getting more out of Robert Woods. You're not getting more out of Scotty Miller. You're not getting more out of Ben Skoranek. You have your guys there. Trey Palmer would come in here and be a name that maybe he starts here and could go up to here. And that's not a superstar, but maybe he's a quality number 3. Maybe Calvin Austin has untapped potential, and Roman Wilson certainly has untapped potential, and the Steelers are viewing it as I'm not sold on Trey Palmer. I'm not trying to convince anybody that that's the move that works. And I don't think it replaces George Pickens at all. But what I do think is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are opening up themselves to many options, and as many as they could possibly open themselves up to. The reason that Trey Palmer is out there and they called about him is just because that's what they did. They called about him. They said, okay, can we look at a guy and say, can we fix it without fixing it directly? Can we fill the hole of George Pickens without filling it with one player? Maybe Trey Palmer is in that boat, but I'm sure there are many other names out there who also fit the bill. The big, most important thing here is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to make a move. And that's significant because they're going to make a move. They're not going to wait it out. They're not going to dive into, oh, okay, we'll wait till training camp and we'll see who else is available. They're ready to make a move now. And the NFL slows down pretty significantly over the next 2 weeks. And from there, we enter the abyss where very little gets done, but the Steelers are looking to make something happen. I think that that's important. I don't know if they're going to fix it. I don't know if Trey Palmer makes me say the Steelers win a single more game than they would without Trey Palmer. But I do think that having a sense of urgency to get this done reflects well on Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they do it correctly, then great. Don't tie yourself. And here's the thing. Don't tie yourself to one player. If I could send advice to the Pittsburgh Steelers, open yourself up to all of the players and then decide what your list is of realistic options. Chris Olave was trying to become a realistic option. It didn't happen. Maybe Trey Palmer is. Maybe Jonnu Smith a little bit is. Maybe Kyle Pitts a little bit is. Maybe at some point a Noah Brown or a John Mechie or a McMillan or a Romeo Dobbs all become more available than they are right now. Maybe a Sterling Shepard becomes a little bit more available than they are right now, when the Steelers could say, okay, this is our list. Who do we pull from? And I think that's the best way to go about it, because the problem in years past is that the Steelers wanted one wide receiver and they didn't get that wide receiver. This year it's, okay, let's call every team and let's see what our options are and let's see if our options can work well. I think that's the way to go about it. I think it's the correct way to go about it if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I don't view them as a team right now who has the room to mess up. They just don't. And after last year, you don't want to overcorrect. You've already done that with DK Metcalf. Don't overcorrect again by going to get another Van Jefferson or find yourself with a Mike Williams. Take it slow. Open up the door, let everybody in, line them up, and say, these are our options. Who's the best fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers? If I had to guess right now, I would say Trey Palmer's near the top of the list, but I would say that there are 3 to 4 names that we do not even know yet, that I don't know yet, that will emerge over the next month and a half where the Steelers have more options at wide receiver, more options to trade for them. And I think right now it's Trey Palmer, maybe Jonnu Smith, and I'd imagine Kyle Pitts is on that list as well. Maybe something gets done early if it's cheap enough. Trey Palmer is not going for more than a 5th round pick. And if that's the case, you make a move. But we're over here looking at it saying, stay calm. And I think everybody else agrees with me in the slow and steady wins the race this time of year. And as long as the Steelers don't overreact, they're in a good spot. They're in a good spot.